Part 21.13 Al-Anbiya, the Prophets. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Sufi Essence with Hammad Syed. We continue our profound and enlightening journey through the heart of Surah Al-Anbiya, where the majestic story of Prophet Abraham, peace be upon him, unfolds as a timeless lesson in faith, courage, and intellectual honesty. In our previous sessions, we witnessed his remarkable courage in confronting his people with a simple yet piercing question, which exposed the folly of their blind adherence to tradition. Today we witness the dramatic and intellectual climax of his mission, as he not only takes a bold physical step against the idols, but also engages in a brilliant and cunning verbal duel with his accusers. We will delve into verses 57 to 65, which recount his solemn vow against the idols, the people's bewildered discovery of the idol's destruction, the subsequent confrontation, and Abraham's masterful deflection that forces his people to confront the absurdity of their own beliefs. These verses are a profound and unforgettable lesson in the absolute certainty of faith and the unshakable resolve required to defend the singular truth of monotheism. Kanz Iman, Quran, Al-Anbiya, the Prophets, 21:57, verse 57. And I swear, by Allah, I will surely plan against your idols after you have turned your backs and gone away. This verse is a powerful and dramatic turning point in the narrative. Having exhausted all logical and intellectual arguments with his people, who were too deeply entrenched in their tradition and spiritual blindness to listen, Prophet Abraham, peace be upon him, now makes a solemn and secret vow. The phrase, "and I swear by Allah," single quotes, shows the profound sincerity of his intention. This is not an empty threat, but a binding oath. He is not motivated by anger or spite, but by a divine purpose. He is taking this step for the sake of Allah alone. The Arabic phrase, "Lakidana asnamakam," or "I will surely plan against your idols," implies a careful and deliberate strategy, not a rash act of violence. He planned to expose the idols for what they truly were, mere stone, completely powerless and devoid of any will. The second part of the verse, "after you have turned your backs and gone away," is a crucial detail. It indicates that he waited for an opportune moment when the city was empty and the idols were left alone. This was an act of faith and trust, a physical manifestation of his internal spiritual rebellion against the polytheism of his people. He knew that if he were to do it in front of them, they would likely overpower him. He waited for a time when the idols would be completely undefended, leaving no room for a false claim that the idols had fought back or that a divine hand had intervened on their behalf. This act of quiet, purposeful defiance is a profound lesson in spiritual courage. Prophet Abraham, peace be upon him, was willing to risk everything: his life, his safety, and his social standing for the sake of the one truth he held so dear. The Sufi understands this as a testament to the absolute certainty of faith yakin, where a person's inner conviction is so strong that it compels them to act against all odds, trusting that Allah's plan is the only one that truly matters. Kanz Iman, Quran, Al-Anbiya, the Prophets, 21:58, verse 58. So he made them into fragments, except for a large one among them, that they might return to it. This verse describes the physical manifestation of Abraham's spiritual rebellion. He enters the temple and, with immense conviction, he made them into fragments. The Arabic word judadan for fragments implies a state of being completely shattered and broken. He did not simply knock them over or deface them, completely destroyed them, leaving no room for them to be repaired or restored. This was a physical demonstration of a spiritual reality. The idols were nothing, and their existence was a lie. This was an act of cleansing, a purification of the land from the false beliefs that had poisoned it for generations. He was a lone man, using his physical strength as a vehicle for his spiritual strength, shattering not only the statues but the entire spiritual delusion of his people. However, the verse then reveals a profound and masterful part of his plan, except for a large one among them, that they might return to it. He left the largest idol intact, a silent and massive piece of evidence. This was a psychological masterstroke. He was setting a trap for his people, forcing them to use their intellect to solve the mystery. By leaving the biggest idol untouched, he was inviting them to come back to it and to question its power. He wanted them to ask the obvious question: if this large idol was so powerful, why did it not stop him? It was a planned-out piece of divine theater, a lesson designed to awaken them from their spiritual slumber. This was not a random act of vandalism, but a profound act of divine wisdom. The Sufi sees this as a lesson in spiritual strategy, that sometimes the most effective way to convey a truth is not through words alone, but through actions that provoke thought and force a person to confront their own assumptions. Surah Al-Anbiya, the Prophets, 21:59, verse 59. They said, "Who has done this to our gods? Indeed, he is one of the wrongdoers." This verse perfectly captures the people's immediate and bewildered reaction upon their return to the temple. The first question that comes to their minds is not, why did this happen? What spiritual force is at work here? Who has done this to our gods? This reveals their deep-seated spiritual error. They still believe that the idols are gods, despite their broken and shattered state. They still see the destruction as an act of a human perpetrator, not as a sign of the idol's inherent weakness. The question, who, is a frantic search for a human agent, not a moment of divine introspection. The verse then shows their immediate and illogical conclusion. Indeed, he is one of the wrongdoers. The Arabic word zaliman for wrongdoers is used again, this time with a deep sense of irony. They have labeled the man who is trying to lead them to truth as a wrongdoer, while they themselves, in their idolatry and spiritual blindness, are the true wrongdoers. This shows the perversion of their moral compass and the spiritual confusion that has taken hold of them. The Sufi understands this as a timeless lesson in spiritual hypocrisy, that those who are most in the wrong are often the quickest to accuse others of wrongdoing, and that a heart that is not in a state of grace can never see the truth. Surah Al-Anbiya, the Prophets 21-60 verse 60, they said, "We heard a young man mention them. He is called Abraham." This verse is a crucial piece of the puzzle, as it provides the answer to the people's desperate search for the perpetrator. The people, in their frantic search for an answer, remember a detail that they had previously dismissed as insignificant. They say, "We heard a young man mention them. He is called Abraham." This is a profound moment of delayed recognition. It heard Abraham's words before. It heard his logical questions and his courageous pronouncements. But they had dismissed him as a mere jest, as a young man with a peculiar idea. Now, in the face of this tangible evidence, his words come back to them, and they connect the dots. The words they had so carelessly disregarded are now the only explanation for the chaos in their temple. The phrase, "a young man," or phaeton, implies that they considered him insignificant, not a serious threat. But his actions, fueled by divine purpose, have now forced them to confront his words in a new and terrifying light. This verse serves as a powerful testament to the fact that truth, no matter how small its initial source, will always find a way to manifest itself, and will one day confront those who have chosen to ignore it. Surah Al-Anbiya, the Prophets, 21-61, verse 61. They said, "Then bring him before the eyes of the people that they may witness." The people's anger and frustration have now coalesced into a single, unified demand for justice. They say, "Then bring him before the eyes of the people that they may witness." This is a profound moment. Their desire is not for a private meeting or a quiet interrogation. They want a public spectacle. They want to expose and humiliate the one who has dared to challenge their most sacred beliefs. This shows the deep insecurity of a faith that is not rooted in truth. They need a public display of power to restore their sense of spiritual authority, and they believe that by punishing Abraham in front of everyone, they will silence his message and reassert the validity of their idols. The phrase that they may witness Yashadu is ironic, for they will witness something completely different from what they expect. They believe they are about to witness his shame, but they will actually witness his unwavering spiritual fortitude. The Sufi understands this as a lesson in the nature of public displays of righteousness, that a true believer has nothing to fear from a public forum, for their truth will ultimately shine through, no matter how much their accusers try to manipulate the situation. Surah Al-Anbiya, the Prophets, 21-62. Verse 62, they said, "Is it you who has done this to our gods, O Abraham?" The public trial has now begun, and the leaders confront Prophet Abraham, peace be upon him, with a direct and accusatory question. They say, "Is it you who has done this to our gods, O Abraham?" This question is a direct challenge to his authority and a demand for a confession. They believe they have caught him, and that by getting him to admit to the crime, they will have the moral authority to punish him. The use of the direct address, "O Abraham," shows their contempt and their belief that he is nothing more than a simple young man who has dared to defy them. They are not asking this question out of a desire for truth, but out of a desire for a confirmation of his guilt. They are confident that they have him trapped, and they are preparing to use his confession against him. They believe that they are in control, but they are about to be outsmarted by a mind that has been illuminated by divine wisdom. Kanzelaman, Quran, Al-Anbiya, the Prophets, 21-63. Verse 63, he said, rather, "This largest one of them did it. So ask them if they can speak." This verse contains Prophet Abraham's peace be upon him, brilliant and masterful response. He does not deny the accusation directly. Instead, he shifts the blame to the one idol that is still intact, saying rather, "This largest one of them did it. So ask them if they can speak." This response is a work of genius. It is a direct and logical counterargument that completely exposes the absurdity of their beliefs. He is not being facetious. He is forcing them to confront the very foundation of their faith. He is telling them that if these are indeed gods, then surely they must have some sort of power, some ability to speak or to communicate. He is using their own logic against them, inviting them to talk to the very object they worship. This is the ultimate spiritual checkmate. The irony of his statement is breathtaking. By saying ask them if they can speak, he is pointing out the most glaring flaw in their belief system, the fact that their gods are silent. Inanimate objects completely devoid of power, consciousness, and will. The Sufi understands this as a perfect example of divine wisdom. That the truth, no matter how profound, must be delivered in a way that is accessible to the mind of the seeker, using their own language and their own logic to lead them to a place of intellectual honesty. Kanzel Iman, Quran, Al-Anbiya, the Prophets, 21-64, verse 64. So they returned to blaming themselves and said, "Indeed, you are the wrongdoers." This verse is a profound and fleeting moment of spiritual clarity for the people. When they hear Abraham's words, they are momentarily shocked into a state of self-reflection. The verse states, "So they returned to blaming themselves." For one brief shining moment, they see the truth of their situation. The absurdity of their belief becomes so clear that they turn on themselves and say, "Indeed, you are the wrongdoers." This is an internal confession, a moment where the veil of ignorance is lifted and they realize that they have been worshiping something that is utterly powerless. They have been the ones in the wrong all along. This is the moment of pure intellectual honesty that Abraham had been hoping for. This shows the power of a single well-placed truth to pierce through the thickest veil of spiritual delusion. The Sufi understands this as a rare and precious moment of divine grace, where Allah, in His mercy, allows a soul to see the truth of its own condition, even if only for a second. Kanzelaman, Quran, Al-Anbiya, the Prophets, 21-65. Verse 65. Then they turned back to their old argument, saying, "You had already known that these do not speak." This final verse in our segment is a tragic and heartbreaking end to a moment of potential salvation. After their brief moment of clarity, they quickly turn back to their old ways. As they say, "You had already known that these do not speak." This is a deliberate and willful regression into spiritual blindness. They know the truth, but they refuse to accept it. They have chosen to deny a reality that they themselves have just confessed. Their stubbornness and their pride are too great to allow them to admit their error. The phrase "they turned back to their old argument" shows that they have chosen the path of delusion and spiritual hypocrisy over the path of truth. They are no longer seeking an answer. They are only seeking to escape the uncomfortable truth that Abraham has presented to them. This is the ultimate human tragedy, to see the truth for a fleeting moment and then to deliberately turn away from it. Hadith. A powerful hadith from Sahih al-Bukhari, Book 59, Hadith 63, beautifully complements this account. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "On the day of resurrection, Abraham will meet his father Azar, whose face will be dark and covered with dust. Abraham will say to him, 'Did I not tell you not to disobey me?' His father will reply, 'Today I will not disobey you.' Abraham will say, 'O Lord, you promised me not to disgrace me on the day of resurrection.' And what will be more disgraceful to me than to see my father in this state? This hadith highlights the depth of Abraham's compassion and the profound grief of seeing a loved one lost in disbelief. His actions against the idols were not motivated by hatred, but by a deep and abiding love for his people, a desire to save them from a fate that he knew was coming. Hadith, narrated by Abu Huraira. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "On the day of resurrection, Abraham will meet his father Azar, whose face will be dark and covered with dust. Abraham will say to him, 'Did I not tell you not to disobey me?' His father will reply, 'Today I will not disobey you.' Abraham will say, 'O Lord, you promised me not to disgrace me on the day of resurrection. And what will be more disgraceful to me than to see my father in this state?" Sahih al-Bukhari, Book 59, Hadith 63. Let us now supplicate, drawing from the profound lessons of these verses, asking Allah to grant us a deeper understanding and to guide our every step. O Allah, the Lord of Abraham, we seek refuge in your power from the idols of our time, both of stone and of ego. Grant us the courage of Abraham to stand for your truth, even when we are alone and facing a world of opposition. Grant us the spiritual discernment to see the folly of false worship and the wisdom to know that true power and protection come from you alone. O most merciful, make us of those who are willing to risk everything for your sake, and grant us unwavering steadfastness on the path of truth. May Allah illuminate your heart and mind with the light of this divine ilm. May He make your channel a beacon of guidance for all who seek spiritual clarity and truth. May your efforts be a source of immense reward, and may you be granted the highest stations of paradise. The peace and blessings of Allah always be upon you and your loved ones. May He grant you unwavering steadfastness on the path of truth, and may your work be a testament to His magnificent names, Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim. Amin.